question isn't, is crypto here to stay or not? So it clearly is.
Obviously, yeah.
The question is, where is it going to happen? Where is that innovation? Where's that economic activity? Where is that tax revenue? Where are those jobs going to be located? Here or somewhere else?
Hey folks, Phil here with Blockchain North. We're here at Futurist, and I'm here with Perianne Boring. Can you please introduce yourselves in 30 seconds or less?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Perianne Boring. I'm the founder and CEO of the Digital Chamber. We're a nonprofit organization that's advocating for the digital currency and blockchain industry. Our mission is to bring this technology to the people of the world. So we're working with policymakers and regulators and innovators to help advance this technology and give it to the hands of people.
Yeah, and I know you from Twitter. You're very active. I guess you put yourself out there. You're really the ambassador for the chamber. And like you told me before, you challenge government sometimes. So how has your journalistic background shaped your role, basically, and I guess also your learning curve in the crypto space?
So before we started the chamber, which we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary a couple of weeks ago, but I did work as a journalist, and I was the first broadcast, or maybe one of the first, arguably the first broadcast journalist in the world to cover Bitcoin as a beat. So I was reporting on Bitcoin regularly on television, and I had a show that was international. And one of the most impactful stories, and we had a lot of really great stories, but was in mid-2013, the country of Cyprus went through its bailouts with the European Union. And there was a lot of uncertainty about the economic future of Cyprus. There were discussions that maybe they would leave the European Monetary Union, get off the euro altogether. And this caused a lot of uncertainty for the people of Cyprus. And during that time, people started buying Bitcoin.
At that time already.
Things. And I was the journalist that got to interview the finance minister of Cyprus live on air and say, what's going on? And
probe him on Bitcoin?
And short, his answer was, I wasn't really prepared for all of this, and I don't really know. But for me, up until then, Bitcoin was an interesting idea and a very exciting experiment. My background's in economic policy and monetary policy, so I've always looked at it as an economic tool, a monetary tool. But could this young and nascent tech experience, could it ever be used in a real-world application? Could it ever be used as an alternative currency? And that was the first time we saw people actually do that. So for me, it really validated my thesis of the potential of Bitcoin, and that was very exciting.
I have to ask you, 10 years later, so, what do you think the evolution of Bitcoin has been and as a monetary tool?
Well, one of the reasons why we started the Digital Chamber is because we knew that this disruption that Bitcoin will cause in the global financial and monetary system would come with some pushback and potentially some fight.
And you were not wrong.
And we wanted to be prepared for those fights, and we wanted to protect Bitcoin through that process. And we've had a very, very intense past couple of years. There has been a massive crackdown to try to kill the crypto industry altogether. There's, at least in the United States...
Operation Choke Point, right?
Operation Choke Point 2.0 is one that's debanked most crypto companies. If you can't get a bank account, what happens when you operate a business? How do you pay your employees? How do you pay your taxes? And you don't have if you don't have a bank account, that's a choke point. So without a bank account is a lifeline to any business. So Operation Choke Point 2.0 is an effort, an illegal effort, to discriminate against legal digital asset businesses to prevent them from having banking services.
Anti-constitutional, essentially.
I would agree. I do believe the industry needs to go to court.
And it has, no? At least against the SEC.
Not on Operation Choke Point 2.0. There hasn't been litigation on that, but the way the industry killed Operation Choke Point 1.0 was through litigation.
Okay.
That's how we put an end to it. That was 15 years ago. It's reemerged, and I think litigation would be very helpful in ending that. But there's been a lot of efforts, a lot of political agendas effectuated against this industry to try to kill it off. And a big part of our role is to defend those businesses, to push back when we have to sue if we have to, use whatever resources we have to defend this technology and make sure people's ability to use an open source, decentralized technology is never impeded.
Yes.
And sometimes we have to go to court.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, expect more, I suppose. So 2024 does feel like a milestone for the industry, in particular in SF. I mean, the ETFs in January, the sort of general Wall Street narrative led by BlackRock has changed significantly. And now that we're pretty much entering the election cycle, or actually we're pretty full on already, the narrative led by Trump, but ultimately, it seems to be spreading to the Democrat side as well. It seems to be really changing this year. Is that what you notice at all?
2024 has definitely been a big year. You mentioned spot Bitcoin ETF. So we started off the year with getting spot Bitcoin ETFs approved. That was a 10-year effort. That wasn't led by BlackRock. BlackRock didn't help in a very instrumental way in getting it across the finish line. But it actually started 10 years before. The very first company or people that tried to bring a spot Bitcoin ETF to market was the Legal Lost Toys in 2013. And for many, many years, the SEC was treating Bitcoin funds in an arbitrary and capricious manner, essentially because they didn't like it.
Yeah.
Which, again, that's legal.
Which is also ironic when you know Gary Gensler's background, right?
Right. So the industry had to sue. So Grayscale sued the Securities and Exchange Commission. The SEC was found guilty of being arbitrary and capricious. And that's the only reason why spot Bitcoin ETF was launched. So that didn't happen because the policymakers or the SEC wanted it to. It only happened because
they were forced to. Yeah.
But it did. It was a watershed moment, and it was the most successful ETF launch in the history of ETFs. ETFs are over 30 years old, exchange-traded products. They're one of the most popular investment products on the market for them. And it's allowed a whole new type of investor to be able to allocate and invest in Bitcoin and now ETH and hopefully more cryptocurrencies in the future. This summer, we saw some of the first ever crypto legislation to get passed through both chambers of commerce. We haven't got anything through the finish line and signed into law by the president, but we have seen a lot of very significant movement and legislation, which takes a long time because Congress does not move very fast. And then now we're gearing up for the election in November, and we have two presidential candidates that are running on a pro-Bitcoin and crypto platform with Kennedy and Trump.
Yeah.
And Harris TBD, since she has not made any public statements yet, but I feel confident that she will at some point.
So what do you expect to happen? I mean, it seems to be a little bit binary in the U.S., basically Republican or Democrats. I mean, I wish Robert Kennedy all the luck you can get. I personally kind of like him. But it seems that the odds are kind of stacked against him. So if Trump wins, what happens to the crypto space? And if Harris wins, what happens?
Well, Trump has given one very pro-Bitcoin and crypto speech. I did a full analysis of his speech. It's on my YouTube channel, or the Chamber's YouTube channel, if anybody wants to look at it. But Trump wants the United States to lead in Bitcoin and blockchain technology. So Trump has made a number of campaign promises to the industry.
Okay.
He Day one, fire Gary Gensler was probably the one that got the most applause. He pledged to end Operation Choke Point 2.0. He wants to get stablecoin legislation done and passed into law. He wants to get market structure legislation passed into law. So a lot of very exciting things there. Vice President Harris has not laid any statements about crypto at things. The Biden-Harris administration is anti-crypto. They tried to shut down the industry.
Maybe it's an age thing.
They were very successful in shutting a lot of companies down, but they kill the industry altogether. So there is an opportunity for Harris to take a new position, and we are strongly encouraging her campaign.
Are you getting any response
to do so
as an industry?
The Harris campaign is engaging with industry, which is a start.
Okay, yeah.
We're starting the conversation, the learnings, the understanding, which is step one. Step two is you need a position. So we would like to see what is the Harris position.
Some policy position.
And then we really need to see action because Harris and Biden are in office. They're in a position to do something. So I think given that the Biden-Harris administration has been so anti-crypto, I think the only way that the industry could take them seriously, if they came out wanting to get the crypto votes, I think they would also need to take action today to prove that it isn't just one.
Yes. Can you update us on the state of adoption in the United States? I feel like you're ahead of Canada, but I heard numbers like 25% of Americans own crypto, which is, very significant actually, especially in terms of the voter base. And maybe any trends or anything that you're watching in particular in terms of the trend line.
Yeah, there are some really interesting crypto adoption trends in the United States. According to a study that was done by Coinbase in January of this year, 52 million Americans own crypto today. That was before the ETFs launched. Of course, billions of dollars have come in through the ETFs over the past several months. So I think that's actually a very conservative number.
Okay.
But still very significant adoption rates in the United States. Of that 52 million, 60% of those are millennials and Gen Z.
Okay.
So it's obviously the younger generations. And they're more likely to be of Latino or Black.
Okay.
So minorities have higher adoption rates than whites.
Okay.
This is a very interesting when you start talking about politics. The millennials, the Gen Zs, minorities are less likely to vote. There's less of those registered to vote. These are communities that both parties have tried very hard to participate in the political process, to participate in political action, to vote, to be a part of that. If either party, whichever party, is successful at getting this,
it's up for grabs.
it could have a massive impact in the election. Ohio is a really important state. It is a battleground state. It's estimated that between $200 to $300 million will be spent in the Ohio Senate election alone. Ohio, one of their Senate seats, it's currently held by Sherrod Brown. Senator Brown is the chairman of the Senate State Committee. He's been in office for over 30 years. He's Elizabeth Warren's partner in crime and the anti-crypto agenda. He's taken more of the backseat, let Senator Warren be more of the base.
Yeah.
But make no mistake, Chairman Sherrod Brown has done everything he can to prevent any type of policy going through the committee that would help establish that regulatory clarity that we need, and has been a huge impediment to the growth of our community here in the United States. His running mate is Bernie Moreno, who's a former chamber member.
Yeah.
He started a small business, a crypto startup, to put car titles on the blockchain, and that's exactly what his company does. He left that company to run for office. He's running against Sherrod Brown. In 2020, so in the election 4 years ago, 4.5 million people in Ohio showed up to vote.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 4.5 million people showed up to vote. That's about 50% of their eligible voter population. Very low voter rates in Ohio. According to NPR, at public radio, there's 2 million crypto owners in Ohio alone.
Oh, wow.
So you can just imagine if any percentage of that community is activated.
Yeah.
That could sway one of the most important elections happening in the U.S. If Sherrod Brown loses, the Republicans will take the Senate and knock out one of the most senior members of the Democratic Party. Being anti-crypto is a political killer. And I would say, crypto industry, we are the majority. We just have to recognize the power we hold as the network, a very powerful and large network of people, and all we have to do is show up.
And you mentioned the minorities, you mentioned the youth. I'm thinking specifically about the youth. As time passes by, I mean, those people, maybe vote more, make up more of the population. And so maybe it's also just a question of time, if you know what I mean, right? But
absolutely. Well, actually, one more stat.
Yeah.
This is 2024 is the first election that Gen Z and millennials, there are more Gen Z and millennial voters than boomers.
That's where I was getting to.
It's the first time in American history.
Yeah.
Boomers have always been the major voting.
Yeah, and it's only going to be more, basically, all the time. I'm wondering what your position is. So you're here in Canada right now. Well, what is first of all, the U.S.'s position in the global crypto world? Because we're talking about a decentralized infrastructure network. And we've seen more adoption in places like Nigeria or the Philippines, for example, than we see in the Western world. So, and I'm also asking this because of Trump's message that, he wants to bring all of the hash rate to the U.S., which is pretty anti, let's say the Bitcoin narrative of decentralization. So where do you sort of see the U.S. in the global space?
Well, the U.S. is the leader in Bitcoin mining. About 40% of all Bitcoin mining is happening in the United States. I do agree. You don't want consolidation. You want a decentralized mining community. So
even if the U.S. maybe has a bit of a bigger share because it's a bigger economy, right?
But at Trump's point, he wants us to lead.
Okay.
Which I agree with. There's many benefits to being a first mover. Many, many. We invented, created, deployed, commercialized the internet, and that has led to significant economic prosperity for all Americans.
Yeah.
We should lead Web 3.0.
And the world.
As well. But today, the United States, unfortunately, the regulatory posture has been very negative towards our industry. We lack regulatory clarity. Businesses don't have the tools they need to be able to build without that fear of enforcement. So a lot of companies have left the U.S. altogether. So really, some of the most innovative projects are not happening in the United States. They're domiciled in other nations that are rolling out the red carpet, saying we would love for you to bring this technology and this innovation within
tax havens.
And, well, not just tax havens. We're talking about the Middle East, the UAE, all over Asia, Singapore,
right.
The EU.
Aren't those all tax havens? Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong? I mean, fiscally, let's say, attract them.
And this isn't about tax strategy.
Okay.
This is about being able to build and innovate without the fear of enforcement. Resources to do so. So in the U.S., a lot of crypto projects, they can't bring to market all sorts of applications because we don't know if they'll get in trouble for that or not.
Yeah.
So a lot of the most advanced businesses, applications, products are happening outside the U.S. and they're geofencing, not allowing Americans to invest in these projects, participate in these projects, be users in any way, shape, or form. So Americans are missing out on a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I'm thinking, imagine if the country was more, let's say, supportive and less anti, basically, how much more development you would have in the United States, right?
The question isn't, is crypto here to stay or not? So it clearly is.
Obviously, no.
The question is, where is it going to happen? Where is that innovation? Where's that economic activity? Where is that tax revenue? Where are those jobs going to be located? Here or somewhere else?
Yeah.
And that we don't know. That's what's being played out right now in the world.
Yeah. So you're here in Canada, not your first time, but your first time at the Futurist Conference. What sort of message do you come in here for, when you're in Canada?
I think it's very important for Canadians, members of the Canadian crypto ecosystem, but all Canadians, to participate in political action. What do I mean by that? One of the biggest reasons why I've dedicated my career to advocating for this technology is because this technology is a tool to exercise some of our most natural and human rights. It's freedom of speech. Cryptocurrencies, open source cryptocurrencies, it's just software. Software is protected by free speech. So any attempt to restrict people's access to using an open source cryptocurrency is impacting freedom of speech. And all people should care about, especially Canadians, but people in the crypto community, but all Canadians.
Yeah.
And it's very important that we ensure our policymakers, regardless of the jurisdiction, understand that the people do not stand with any attempts to restrict our access to using this technology. We have everything to lose if we roll over on these fights. And these fights are playing out around the world. There's a number of these happening in the United States. We're seeing attempts to ban self-hosted wallets. We are seeing threats for open source software developers to make them liable for what people use their code for that they may not have any relation to at all. These are critical fights that come to do with our natural rights. And it's our job to protect those too.
Yeah, and Canadians look at the U.S., you're like the big brother, to put it this way, or as a big sister, but, so I'll figure a message. I feel that's a certain way to our audience. I'm wondering, for the youth, I mean, you started your journey, let's say, with the Chamber quite early. It's quite young, so I'm wondering what your message would be to your younger self, in a sense, to others and follow us in Canada in terms of what opportunities are in the industry, what role you'd like to see them play. Do we need more ambassadors? Right? We probably could use more developers as well, but what do you say to the youth around them?
I think education is the most important tool that we have for young people getting involved in the crypto space. There are a lot of wrong moves you can make. There's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of reward, but there's no reward without risk. So first and foremost, for anybody getting involved in crypto, but especially young people, it's really important that you educate yourself before you start buying things or investing in things or building in things. Take the time to learn. Meet with people who have been around a little bit longer. Understand what mistakes they made. Ask them, what type of pitfalls should I avoid? And always do your research. And if you are approaching any type of career choice or investment choice with that foundation of understanding, you're going to be so much better prepared to succeed here.
Right. Is there a message that we haven't shared during this interview that you like to share? Is there something that is maybe one of your higher convictions, or maybe you want to synthesize basically your beliefs with our audience? I mean, what keeps you going 10 years on? It's a long time.
Well, on the theme of education, I'm an executive producer in a documentary that just launched a couple of weeks ago.
Announcement, that's great.
Called God Bless Bitcoin.
Okay.
This movie had a multi-million-dollar budget. It was the most well-funded Bitcoin documentary in the history of Bitcoin. And we released it for free. Nobody has to pay to watch it. It's open on the website, godblessbitcoin.com, and anybody can watch it and learn. But we made this movie to help educate everybody. People who can't afford to pay $10 to watch a movie. We do believe Bitcoin offers hope to communities around the world for a number of reasons. About financial sovereignty. This is about creating financial independence. And these are people who need to know and understand the basics. In our work, we have found that a lot of people have been put off by Bitcoin because there's been so many scandals, it's PR nightmares, and just...
Which often haven't have anything to do with Bitcoin, right?
Or their first impression is something they read in the media that wasn't positive. A lot of times people say, oh, Bitcoin, isn't that affiliated with illicit activity? That's one of the number one things we get back.
Or does it use too much energy here?
So my belief is that Bitcoin is the most ethical and moral form of currency available to the people of the world today. And that's the case that we made. And we did that by studying scriptures of all the world's major religions, understanding what they say about money, and then taking those values, those morals that come from religions, and comparing that to Bitcoin. And how does Bitcoin compare to that? And then we compare it to the fiat system, which didn't pass the test. So God Bless Bitcoin is a very exciting documentary that was just released, and that everybody can watch and appreciate for free.
Very cool. Thank you very much for your time, Perianne. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.